Hey guys, it's Pastor John. So glad you are able to join me today for our daily office as we spend this time looking at the Gospel of Luke, our lunch with St. Luke today. And we are moving into our episode 26 today, episode 26, and continuing, uh, obviously, the story of Jesus, really at the beginning of the story of the gospel. So we were in Luke chapter 2. In our last episodes, we were getting to know a little bit Simeon, and today we are meeting Anna, the prophet, the prophetess. I've got a, yeah, of course, it's always fun to include work of some famous artist. I've got Rembrandt's version of Saint Anna here, though, as usual with Rembrandt, she's looking at a book that is pretty much nothing like the kind of scrolls that Saint Anna would be looking at, and she's dressed absolutely nothing like Anna would be. However, uh, Rembrandt is actually, I love his work because he does often catch much of the feeling that's going on in the story, and he also, by using his own like contemporary dress and contemporary props, he actually is in some ways applying the text to his time. So that is actually pretty beautiful to observe, and obviously he's a brilliant artist as well. But today we are looking at Anna, the prophetess, and I am reminded of something that I profoundly miss here as we're going through this COVID season. I miss getting to hang out with the senior citizens of our church. I miss getting to do our context group that's in the senior high rise across the street. This is actually a picture of that context group, and it was a meeting prior to the pandemic. And this is up on the 17th floor of that high rise. Some beautiful views of the city, of the lake, and even down on the church. So, one of the people in that context group, in fact, she's kind of sitting towards the front to your left there, is Miss Mary. And Miss Mary is just a wonderful, godly saint. And, it's pretty cool, listening to her story. But one part of her story that I particularly appreciate is the fact that well, she's a member of Uptown Baptist Church, our original mother church. She would sit in this high rise across the street from this church building back before there was much going on here, before we had kind of moved into the area, and then before she had met us, and she would just keep praying and praying and praying that God would do something here in this building. In many ways, Miss Mary is, uh, part of the reason why C3 exists. Miss Mary is one of the ones who God used to really um, plant this church here in this neighborhood, even though, she's rarely even been across the street here to visit us. Her prayers and her prayers, once she did meet us, her prayers for me and for our family, it's just an enormous blessing in our lives. We're so thankful for her. Well, Mary and Joseph and Jesus actually had a similar experience during their visit there to the temple. After Simeon had spoke his words of blessing and prophecy over them, in verse 36 we read, there was also a prophetess, Anna, a daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher. Now that's interesting. She still knew which of the tribes she was from, even though the 10 northern tribes had been pretty much dispersed and scattered, um, after the fall of Samaria back in uh, 7, 722, right? Yeah, after the fall of Samaria, those tribes had pretty well been scattered, but she still apparently knew that she was of the tribe of Asher. She was very well along in years, having lived with her husband 7 years after marriage, and was a widow for 84 years. So she'd been married for 7 years, and then a widow for 84. That means she's, over 100 years old. She did not leave the temple complex, serving God night and day with fasting and Oh, what a beautiful picture. Really, the contemplative life, right? Uh, in many ways, she functions much as a monk or a nun would today, right? She's focusing her entire life, fasting and praying. And it's a beautiful thing to see that level of devotion in her life, and to see that she not only was gifted as a prophetess, but she also was serious about her relationship with God, serious about communicating with Him, serious about spending time with Him. In verse 38, it continues, at that very moment. So, right then, as Simeon has just blessed Mary and Joseph and Jesus, that very moment she came up and began to thank God and to speak about Him to all who were looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. Well, this is pretty cool because, of course, here you have two people who are bearing witness to Jesus as the one who's going to rescue, save, and redeem Israel, Jesus as the Messiah. We see um, two who are bearing witness to that. And interestingly, we see both a man and a woman. And we're going to really see that often throughout the Gospel of Luke. Luke includes in his account very obviously and very often women. And in fact, when he's giving examples of things that are going on, he'll often give those examples as a matched pair. Here's something a guy did or said, and here's something that a woman did or said. And he really shows that the gospel is for not only for men, but that the gospel is also for women, and that women are really involved in the gospel story. In fact, one of the things we're going to see in the Gospel of Luke is that a woman never does anything mean or terrible towards Jesus. And that's not that women can't do things which are mean and terrible. Of course they can. But Luke is really trying to emphasize the role of women and how valuable they are to God, how important they were to Jesus and his story during his earthly ministry, and how important they are to him now as he sits enthroned. So, what a beautiful story, what a wonderful blessing, and one of the things which, of course, we need to be thinking about as we head throughout our week, is we need to recognize that we need in our life more than just whatever giftedness God has happened to give us. Obviously, she was gifted as a prophetess, but that we also need to pay special attention to actually building our relationship with God. The practice of spiritual disciplines, things like fasting, things like prayer, those are incredibly important to our spiritual journey. Those, can become just rote and meaningless and ritualistic and legalistic, of course, and anything can become that in our lives. Anything can be twisted in that direction. But what they are is they are, opportunities to be communicating with God, opportunities to be building that attachment with Him. So I encourage you this week, make sure that you spend some time in prayer. Make sure that you practice the other spiritual disciplines. Remember, as we continue to walk through this Lenten season, remember the what you decided as your fast for this year, and continue to keep that fast as we look to deepen our communication, to deepen our attachment, to deepen our relationship with Jesus. Anna is a very good example of that. Well, thank you again so much for joining me here today. It's been a blessing getting to spend this time with you. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I will certainly be praying for you today as you go through this Monday, and we'll be praying for you throughout this week. I look forward to hopefully we'll be able to finish up Luke chapter 2 this week by the time we get around to Friday. So the Lord Jesus bless you. Keep following Jesus, and have a great day.